November 1st meeting of the Person County Board of Commissioners to order at this time. And we'll note that we do have a quorum, and it's good to see Commissioner Gentry back in our presence to help us make up that quorum. So welcome back. And if you so desire, I'll lead us in an invocation, and Commissioner Sims will lead our Pledge of Allegiance. Pray with me, please. Heavenly Father and merciful God, we thank you for this opportunity to come together tonight to conduct the business of Person County. Be with each of us, be with each decision made. May we always honor what's right and do the right thing for the people of Person County. Lead and guide us, we humbly pray. Amen.
Please stand if you can and salute our American flag and recite after me. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First on our agenda would be a discussion, adjustment, or approval of the agenda as presented. Any comments, discussions?
Move for approval.
We have a motion to approve as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number one, we need to go into a public hearing, so I'll take a motion at this time to open the above noted or the noted public hearing. We have a motion.
So move.
Have a motion to go into public hearing. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And we, Ms. Oakley, you're up to.
Good evening,
Good
Mr.
evening.
Chairman, members of the board. The next item on the agenda, review and adoption of the Person County and City of Roxboro Joint Comprehensive Land Use Plan. I would like to state that all zoning ordinance and state statutes have been met for this public hearing. In 2001, the City of Roxboro and Person County adopted their current land use plans. And in 2019, this board, along with the Roxboro City Council, approved a request to collaborate on a joint update to the land use plan. And in late 2019, Benchmark was selected as the consultant to draft the update. Jason Epley with Benchmark Planning is here with you tonight to give you an overview of the update process along with the plan. I would like to state that planning staff recommends approval and adoption of the Person County and City of Roxboro Joint Comprehensive Land Use Plan. This plan establishes a common vision, goals, and overall objectives for the county and city with implementation strategies to fulfill the shared vision. Before Jason comes up here to present, I did want to let you know that at the planning board meeting on October 14th, the board voted unanimously 4-0 to recommend adoption of the comprehensive land use plan. The city planning board also voted unanimously in favor of adopting the plan at their October the 4th meeting. The plan is here before you tonight, and the City Council of Roxboro is set to hear the plan at their November 9th meeting. At this time, I'd like to introduce Jason Epley, who's here tonight. He is the president of Benchmark Planning. Jason has over 20 years of planning experience. He's been before you before to give you an update, and we were very fortunate to have him lead this update to our comprehensive land use plan.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight to speak with you. It's been a pleasure to work with citizens of your community and the steering committee throughout the process, and glad to be back here to talk with you about where we're at this point with the plan. Am I supposed to put this? I guess you just want to click the next slide. All right. There we go. Just to remind you, the purpose of the plan is really over the next 10 years to give you guidance on land use policy decisions, especially the planning board, as they review zonings, rezoning, other development cases, capital investments, as you look to work for projects with the city, as you've done in the past for economic development projects, schools, and other growth management type decisions. But as Lori mentioned, this is a shared vision, and I just commend you for working together with the city to develop this document. And it's not going to work again, so I'll let you click it.
There you go.
We did work with a 10-member steering committee that also includes your chairman, Mr. Powell. And we had 5 from the county and 5 from the city. And we worked on this over about 16 months. The purpose of the committee was to give us guidance as we're looking at background research, looking at ways to reach the public. They gave us advice throughout the whole way and guided the direction of the plan as it was being developed. Next slide. Give you a little bit of idea of the type of community input that we received during the process. We had a survey that ran from July 1st through August 7th. It was a 10-question survey of 585 responses. And this particular question was in response to the type of things folks would like to see in the future, maintaining the small town feel, increasing employment, keep it rural, diversify the economy. These were types of things that were mentioned as part of that survey. Next slide. We also conducted listening sessions during the survey where we met with about 50 different folks, which included city department heads, county department heads, staff, transportation officials, folks involved in real estate, agriculture, community, tourism, chamber. You can see the whole list there. We tried to really cover our basis, as I mentioned, kind of like the steering committee. As we were looking at the data, it gave us a chance to bounce off the data with the committee and with these folks to see if the trends we were seeing matched up with what was on the ground for folks actually live here and do business here. Next slide. We also had a project website, and this was really important over the last year and a half. As you know, not everyone wanted to attend a public meeting. A lot of our meetings were open to the public, but there was a limited number of folks that could attend. But we wanted to make sure people had a chance to watch the meetings online. So all of our steering committee meetings were posted online so you could watch it live. We also kept them posted on the website. We had over 800 views, unique views of the website throughout the course of the project. Next slide. Discussion panels. Some of you may have been able to participate in those and come out and watch or watch online from home. We covered 3 main topics that came out during the process, which included economic development, agriculture and natural resources, and growth and development. And we held those over October, November, and December. And about 90 plus participants participated online and in person. Once again, we had it just like you're doing now, broadcasting this meeting. We did the same thing with these meetings. And we had a lot of panelists that live and work here in the community. Next slide. We also had a drop-in meeting once we had a draft future land use map and recommendations prepared back in May. From 3 to 7 right here in this room. As you can see in one of the slides up top there, we actually had a young family come in, which was nice to see. In total, we had about 25 folks come out to that particular meeting. We also received comments online. Once again, it was the draft future land use map, guiding principles and strategies. Next slide. So in addition to the public input and the input from the steering committee, we also looked at background research, as I mentioned earlier, where we covered as many of our bases as we could, from demographics, housing, land use, transportation, utilities, environment, and agriculture. Next slide. Planning themes. These were the key planning themes that emerged during the process as we looked at the survey results, talked to the committee and others. Maintaining the rural character and lifestyle of the county was very important. How do you balance that with the desire to also grow? The Research Triangle Park influence is something that can't be denied. It certainly plays an important role in the future of the county, being so close to the RTP area. Retail and entertainment is something that was very important to people that took the survey, and folks would like to see more opportunities and options in that area. The uptown of Roxboro was very important to folks. Certainly, it's the heartbeat of your community. Anytime you bring in industrial clients and other folks, almost everybody wants to see what downtown looks like. How healthy is your downtown? Education, very important. Housing, amenities and recreation, age of the population. Certainly the city has a slightly bit younger population than the county. Employment and economy is also very important. Governmental coordination, being at Roxboro and Person County, working together on this plan is a great example of that. And transportation. All these were important to developing the next slide, which is the guiding principles. And all four of these guiding principles work together to form the vision of the plan in the future for Person County and the city of Roxboro. Number one being celebrating the rural character and lifestyle that we heard about a lot during the process. How do you allow for growth and have farming? Facilitate sustainable economic growth, and that's not just about growth for the sake of having growth, but growth that provides well-paying jobs and jobs that will last for a long time. Building a strong and vibrant community was guiding principle number 3. And then finally, number 4, strengthening governmental coordination. So with all of that information in hand and working with the committee to develop the future land use map, we looked at all that information, and also what you see on the screen here, which is representative of many of the data layers we looked at, including natural resources, transportation, infrastructure, and land use. You can see on the screen there, watershed, the topo, soils, and the various land uses throughout the county. Pretty comprehensive look at it. Next slide. And after working with the committee and looking at all the input, we developed a future land use map for the entire county. And we broke it out into 2 so you can actually see what's going on in Roxboro, because the little gray area in the middle on the map on the left would be where Roxboro would fit. But we wanted to break that out so you could actually see it. But the overall theme and idea here is that out in the dark green areas, those are your rural areas where you have a lot of natural resources, farming, the watersheds in that area, low density residential. There are some scattered, small scale commercial businesses out in that area. Most of, for example, convenience stores. Moving in closer, you see the light green area. This is the area that was called the growth area. And this particular area can easily be served, looking at the sewer basins in that area by utilities from the city of Roxboro, where you could have much more intensive type development on water and sewer. And this is an area that's not currently served, but it definitely includes those sewer basins so that it could easily be served. The yellow areas on that map represent already neighborhoods that already exist today. The purple areas that you see, that represents industrial designated areas, and those are areas that are already being used for industrial or either planned for industrial. It's a little difficult to see, but there's a dark blue area that represents the campus district, and that covers things like the schools, and the college is on there just north of the city there. But like I said, it's kind of hard to see on this particular map. And then also around the lakes, you'll see a special designation that recognizes the recreational and residential uses and small scale commercial uses around Mayo and Hyco. And then finally, on this particular map, the dark gray towards the southern end of the county, there's the area around the airport called the Airport Compatibility Area. And the purpose of that is to ensure compatible land uses into the future. For example, obviously around the airport, you don't want to see a lot of dense residential developments or any high concentrations of people like a school or something like that. You want to see low density development patterns around the airport. Certainly industrial uses that can take advantage of that location as well. And I'm not going to go into detail on the city's land use map. There are a few more categories such as uptown transition area, and then intensive commercial. Next slide. So these are the categories that are in the plan that you have. I don't plan to go through these, but these are all the ones that are pertinent specifically to Person County, the rural, the growth area, the residential neighborhoods, the campus, industrial, airport compatibility, and Hyco and Mayo Lake. Be happy to answer questions on those at any point in time. Next slide. So with the map, future land use map in place and the 4 guiding principles that form the vision, there were 27 objectives developed to help move the plan forward into the future. And next slide. Guiding principle number 1, just to give you a little bit of an idea, direct development to the growth areas. And this is not about restricting and not allowing development out in the rural area of the county. It's just mostly saying when you have high intensity growth I want to point that to the light green areas on the map where you have infrastructure to support it. Preserve farmland and forests with partner organizations. There are a lot of efforts underway in the county now to preserve farmland. And this plan suggests to continue to look at ways to do that. Okay, next slide. Guiding principle number 2, facilitate sustainable economic growth. And this focused on designating sufficient land for industrial development. As you've noticed on the map, a lot of that land, some of it's industrial now, and some of it's planned for industrial. Improve access to broadband was something that was very important through the process. And that's not just a rural issue, that's definitely an urban city issue as well. And certainly utility infrastructure to support growth is an important principle strategy under guiding principle number 2. Next slide.
The fan came on and you can't hear.
Can you get up on the microphone, sorry? Okay, sure. Guiding principle number 3, building a strong and vibrant community. As we talked about, directing growth to the light green areas, more intensive growth, apartments, large scale, dense subdivisions, heavy commercial type uses. Those are the type things that should be directed to where there's services in place to support that: fire, water and sewer, and those types of things. Encourage the reuse of legacy commercial areas. Certainly there are a lot of vacant areas in the city and within the county that could be reused and repurposed and given new life. And provide high quality parks and recreation opportunities is something that was identified during the process as well. I'll move on to number 4. Strengthening governmental coordination. Certainly this is an example of that. Coordinating approach to utility service, as we talked about that before. That's something that the county and city have partnered on in the past, and there's certainly opportunities for that in the future. Fire and EMS, enhancing collaboration for the provision of those services. Every year, financial resources become tighter and tighter in all of our communities. And as we've noticed, volunteers, people wanting to do those types of things is certainly not increasing. And how do we make sure that we provide adequate services in those areas in the future? Joint city-county economic development initiatives. And then also, just as we're doing in this process with the joint comprehensive land use plan, certainly continuing that effort with the city as you move forward. Next slide. And this slide really culminates, I think highlights the most important piece of the plan, really. It's great that today this committee has worked a long time to develop this plan, but if you don't keep it up to date and don't regularly review it, I don't think you're going to accomplish all the things you want to accomplish as a county, as a city working together. It's going to be very important as the staff reviews the plan on a day-to-day basis, as they have zoning cases that come in. They'll make note of those changes. Developing a process to evaluate the plan. We're currently working with Lori and the city staff to look at a process of how to update this plan. Certainly, annual plan evaluation is warranted, where you can look during your work sessions and budgeting sessions to identify, what updates or priority projects may be needed in the coming year. And then finally, every 3 to 5 years, consider major updating of the plan, making sure that you're keeping up with any trends that might have changed during the course of time. And then certainly, as you develop other plans in the community, you want to make sure that you coordinate those with the comprehensive land use plan as well. Next slide. And Lori had mentioned the City of Roxboro's Planning Board gave a favorable recommendation to their city council on October the 4th. The Person County Planning Board did the same on October the 14th, and you can see the schedule remaining there. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you so much.
Questions?
Of course.
Sure, go ahead.
Just a quick question. Thank you so much. Lori, you could probably answer this question first. What was the cost of Benchmark's planning and working with the county? What was the county's expense on this?
In the, I want to say that it was,
Not to say you're not worth it, Mr. Mr. Jason, at all. I'm just curious as to what it costs because I don't know.
That was the total.
Yes,
County portion.
the total was, I believe, 170,000.
Okay,
I believe the county paid around 60%.
okay.
City paid
And the
40.
balance was the city?
Yes.
Okay, all righty. So the last time we did this was 2001. We had a joint comprehensive plan and we hadn't done another one until 2019 when it was mandated by the legislature that the county do so.
It was actually not a joint plan. Both the city and the county hired the same consultant, but they crafted two
That's-
separate freestanding
gotcha.
plans. And as Jason said, plans typically go for about 10 years.
Mhm.
And we were really pushing it with 20 years. And then we did have some updates from the North Carolina General Statutes to make sure that you have a current comprehensive plan in place. So it kind of worked out great on both fronts
Okay.
to go ahead.
That has to be in place by July 1st of 2022 by state mandate.
Yes, and we technically have one in place. So
Okay.
we did meet that requirement.
Okay,
We
so
have a
we already
current
did.
one. It's
Okay.
just very outdated.
Okay. So the other thing I noticed in the report, I was looking at some of the statistics, some of the data. And we are at 2021 right now, and there's some great plans and things that people want to achieve in this plan. And I know this is a wish list. This doesn't have the force of a zoning or law, but it says we anticipate 660 new residents by 2040. That's like 33 people a year. We're going to reach all these goals with that kind of, I mean, there's something not quite right here.
I would say those are projections by the state of North Carolina Office of State Budget and Management. You have to take that with a grain of salt. They base their projections on out-migration, in-migration, birth rates, all those types of
Right, in
things.
Person County, they're projecting a 0.2% population increase by 2050.
Their population projections don't.
I
take
know,
in-
that's
they
kind of
don't take-
scary.
they
That's
don't
kind of
take into
scary based
account-
on everything you're telling me here.
Sure. They
But
don't
it's-
take
it's
into
in the
account
report.
growth that may or may not come as a result of your proximity to the triangle.
Mhm.
And, efforts that are made
Here,
by the
locally.
county and the city
Exactly.
to improve the water and sewer situation,
Mhm.
to facilitate the type of growth that would help achieve some of these goals. So I
Right.
think those are all factors that the state does not consider.
Well, yeah,
when-
well,
when
you're
they
talking
do that.
about, diversifying the economy and adding employment, that those numbers look kind of scary. So I'm just saying there's a lot of work
Yes.
to be
Yes.
done based on the wish list.
Correct.
Or, I don't know who to ask. Who was reviewing day-to-day staff? Who did they answer to? Who amendments and updates? Who does or who reviews the staff that is over this on a day-to-day basis? According to page.
I think you're
24.
asking who reviews the plan to determine the updates? Is that?
Says a day-to-day
I
reviews.
think the
and
answer is me,
cases.
but I'm not sure. What page are you reading?
Okay, amendments and updates. Evaluate and update regularly. Day-to-day staff reviews and cases.
That would be planning
Who-
staff, planning,
Planning.
city and county.
Thank you. I didn't make it plain. Thank you. I do have a major concern on sewer and water. My father was a plumber. He lived in Norfolk all of my adult life, well, all of my childhood. He moved back here. I was 23 in 1982. At the time, he was a plumber, self-employed, private contractor. I would work with him and I work at the power plant. The infrastructure is dilapidated very, very badly. I've been hearing since 1982 that the city does not have the money to upgrade. What do we have to do to get the city more money? What do you have to do? Raise taxes or cut back on this? Who is Tommy or Lockhart Brooks, either one here tonight? Tommy Warren, Brooks Lockhart? They can give you the same information that I know, that these water pipe and sewer drains are caving in, they're falling apart, they're leaking, you patch a road, now you pave a road, and within a week, it's got leaks all over it. So that is a major concern. And this is not just Morgan Street, this is across the whole city limits. And this is a very serious problem, very serious. I want to see growth. Yes, absolutely. Who does not? But this situation with the water and sewer, even the airport situation, we got to build a pump station to get that to the city when and if this ever occurs. So I'm just sharing my concerns, I guess. But I think it's something that's the city's property, and I think that they need to be on top of this. Instead of put a patch on a line when it busts, replace 20 foot of the pipe. It's real simple. You're gonna send 5 guys out here to put a patch on, take them an hour and a half, 2 hours at a cost of $800. Put 20 more feet of pipe in for $300 more. That's a grave concern. It's been a concern of mine since 1982. And I wanted to share that. I hope I didn't hurt anybody's feelings. It worked with the city. That's all I got. Good point.
Any other questions, commissioners? None? Okay. Thank you, folks.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation.
And at this time, we will take public comments relating to this matter. And maybe our IT person will say allow 3 minutes for your comments or less, depending on how you feel you'd like to conduct that. So Madam Clerk, would you recognize those in favor?
Yes, sir. The first speaker is Mr. Barry Allen of Morris Mill Road, Ridgemont.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Barry Allen. My wife and I have lived in southern Person County for 21 years. My comments tonight are about the process, less about the plan, because the process is incomplete. Long ago, I took a graduate level course in land use planning. More to the point, I read this on our planning department's website. The planner's job is to work with residents and elected officials. The first 8 words are worth repeating. A planner's job is to work with residents. But I'm a resident. Planning Director Lori Oakley, Parks and Recreation Director John Hill, and our attorney Ellis Hankins, with whom I worked closely many decades ago, can all tell you I am a generally well-informed citizen. But I did not know that our comprehensive land use plan was being revised, nor was I asked to participate in discussions or asked to respond to a survey or told about a website that I could access. I only learned about the plan revision when I read about it this past week in the Courier Times. Thank heavens for the Courier Times. When I studied land use planning many years ago, I learned that stakeholders are essential to the process and that stakeholders are individuals, groups, or organizations whose interests may be positively or negatively affected by its successful completion. In reviewing the extensive list of stakeholders that participated in this process, I see business and industry, city and county staff and planning boards, developers, engineers, real estate professionals, Caritar regional consular governments, nonprofit organizations, North Carolina Department of Transportation, Person County Area Transportation System, Cooperative Extension, Economic Development Commission, schools, Tourism Development Agency, Piedmont Community College, Roxboro Chamber of Commerce, Soil and Water Conservation Board, Uptown Roxboro Group. I will go back to where I began with 8 words. A planner's job is to work with residents. Now I understand why I didn't know about this process, because I am a resident and a citizen. But there's still time. The citizens can still have a voice, and you can make it happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
That concludes in favor of the plan. In opposition to the plan, the first speaker is Ms. Cynthia Lynch of Union Grove Church Road in Hurdle Mills.
Good evening.
Good
Now, I'm not
evening.
really opposed to this, but I have the choice of either one piece of paper or the other. So that's the piece of paper I chose to write my name on. I'm going to focus my remarks on the implementation part of the plan, specifically guiding principle number 1. That's your addenda package, page 116. It's known as Celebrating Our Rural Character and Lifestyle, which seeks to promote the preservation of the county's prime agricultural lands. Now, just the title of this principle causes me some concern. Farming is more about shedding blood, sweat, and tears to produce food we all need to keep alive than it is about celebrating. Farming is not a party, it's a tough job. Farming is a calling, much like a medical or teaching profession. And like those professions, it is a critical component of the well-functioning society. It's extremely demanding, and the catastrophe can hit with the next storm. We need to support our farmers as much as possible. Now, this plan offers some help, but the word development is used way too many times. Now, the conservation subdivision concept is better than the slash and burn the whole farm subdivision that we see too many times. But it's not really going to help farmers with the sustainability that they need, because there's still going to be less land, the land's going to be taken away. And now there's going to be more people who, let's face it, they're likely to complain about the noises and smells of the farm that is still remaining there. Now, I agree with the attempt to promote the agritourism and other commercial venues, but I'm not sure how much this maintains productive farms. Maybe it just creates more like farm-like areas, and that's my concern. That these objectives may help to retain the appearance of farm-like areas, but I don't think enough thought has been put into what can actually be done to retain working, producing farms. I've started to connect with some farm families, and there are those in the next generation who do want to continue farming, but they need more land or they need more equipment. And I'm not sure what the county can do about that, but the county can help to keep the cost of farmland reasonable. I've learned that some of the land that would have been used for one of the solar facilities was an important part of the acreage farmers currently are renting to keep their farms going. It would have caused really a big problem for that farmer if they had lost the use of that land. Now, I agree with the rural future land use category description, that's page 103 in the agenda packet, that rural and supportive services should be permitted without limitation. But I think there's a need to tighten what has been listed as typical rural commercial enterprises in the current list of permitted uses we have. This seemed to have led to the idea that virtually anything is allowed in rural designated lands, and this puts too much pressure on good land to be sold off for other than agricultural use, as we just saw in the recent solar facility applications. In summary, I would like to see less support for subdivision developers and more support for farmers in rural designated areas presented in the plan. Subdivisions bring in the need for more governmental services, and they do not bring in enough revenues to support those services. As the planning director in Roxboro, when I brought this up as a panelist on the growth and development panel in connection with about a year ago, she couldn't have agreed more. I would like to see more financial and long range and also next generation planning assistance for farm families. Maybe this is something the Economic Development Commission could work on. Thank you.
Thank you.
And our last speaker for the public hearing is Mr. Chris Weaver of Satterfield Farm Road, Timberlake.
I'm not really speaking against this plan either, but I was one of the, what was it, 25 that was here in May. And as this gentleman over here said, you know, I saw on the board half of the list that was people of the people engaged work for government. I would like to see more more involvement with residents. I have not had a chance to look at this. This thing just came out. Ms. Reeves, I think you said it was 162 pages long. I've not had a chance to sit down and go through it. It came out Thursday night. I don't know if all of you have had a chance to go through it. I don't know how many people in here have had a chance to go through it. I'm sure there's probably nothing horribly egregious in there, but I would like to have its opportunity to go through it. I do recall in May that some of the area around the airport that is going to jump out and go all the way up to GKN and across the highway, that was a little interesting to see how big that industrial area is supposed to take off. I want to make sure that nobody has family land over there that could be voting on this project, because that guarantee that land's going to go up if the price of that land is going to go up if this passes. So I would ask you to please just hold off on making a motion on this, so more people get a chance to look at it. It's not for me, but for everybody. And because it just hit the internet Thursday night. We've had World Series, we've had Halloween, so I would just ask that if you were thinking about passing a motion on this, let's just kick it down the road one meeting, please. That way the public can have a chance to look at it. And go Braves.
That's all.
That concludes the
Right.
speakers for the public hearing, correct?
Okay. Do we have a motion to close the public hearing? Have a motion to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? None. Motion carried. Item number 2 is action by this board. Resolution of adoption of the Person County and City of Roxboro Joint Comprehensive Land Use Plan as presented. So what's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we do postpone a vote on this until the public has had ample opportunity to review it. I just got it on Thursday and read through it. I don't think it's a bad thing to wait a little bit and let the public weigh in on this, seeing how only 585 people participated in something. Now, I know this doesn't have the force of law and it doesn't have the force of zoning, but I think as a courtesy to enough people who are standing up here and saying, how come we didn't know about this? Maybe we should consider postponing this and making sure that we have an outreach that the public knows that this plan has been finished.
I certainly don't have a problem with it. I don't know how you propose that be accomplished. Because it's been on the website a year and a half and I don't have any problem with postponing. So I don't,
This that I
don't
just
know.
received has been on for a year and a half.
the process has been.
The process, but the
Yes.
actual
And-
outcome has
and,
not.
Jason, would you comment on how much of that has been posted during that year and a half? And it was incremental because it was a process. So it couldn't have all been posted because it wasn't a full document at that time. But again, just how would we go about ensuring? And I don't know, how do you quantify that? How many people do you think would be sufficient or will respond?
Sure, Mr. Chairman. During the process, as we presented information to the steering committee, as I mentioned that during the presentation, all of those meetings were broadcast live, recorded, and posted on the website. Throughout the process, as the plan was developed, the full document of the plan was certainly available for the planning board reviews as well. And I believe that was into September. So not sure how you can, a lot of word has gotten out through different methods of communication. Are there other ways to inform the public? Sure. And that's up to you all, how you want to move forward with, doing that part of the
Okay.
process. I don't know what
That's good.
Lori
Any
might want to
any
add.
comment, Lori?
Not really, just to add that we had the draft up on the website as it was approaching planning board. So I know it's been up there at least over a month now that we've had the full draft, and there were no changes made by the planning board at city planning board or
Mhm.
county board. So the plan has stayed at the same in draft form.
Yeah. Well, that's sort of my point, that it has been public for long term. It just didn't pop up overnight. So do we, yes, please.
I would like to echo with PJ here. Monday was the first, actually Friday, when I got the email from Brenda, was the first I've known about this myself.
Mr. Chair,
All right,
Not
yes,
even,
sir.
not even a hint anywhere.
Yes, sir. Mr. Sims.
Mr. Chair, I see that it looks like 11/9, the Roxboro City Council will be getting the same presentation. Is that correct? 11/9. If we postpone it to the next meeting, and then we really don't have to go before the city. They can go ahead and have theirs and decide on how they want to vote on that. And then we can come back and make our decision the next meeting, if I understand that correctly. And it sounds like, I certainly want the citizens of Person County to have the opportunity to read the document if they haven't. And I think saying what we're saying tonight, if we postpone it till the next meeting, you've had your opportunity. Come the next meeting, if someone hasn't read it, then I'm sorry, we're going to go ahead and make our vote on it. But at least we give the people an opportunity to look at this document. So I would agree with Commissioner Gentry on let's voting on this our next meeting.
That next meeting date, 15th.
Questions. If anyone would like to submit questions to me, I can get with planning staff and produce a public document of answers and get those circulated as well. So feel free to call or email me. I'm happy to help facilitate that as well.
So,
If I need to make that a motion, I will.
but let's go back to
Did she make the
Commissioner
motion?
Gentry's motion.
All right, good.
With me on that. And also, this is a really good example of why we need a communication specialist in the county. We need somebody that can do better for the county in disseminating information. It's vitally important because we've got a lot of holes here and it's not getting to everybody we think it might be getting to.
We have a motion on the floor. Any other comments?
No, I agree.
Uh,
A lot of pages to read. Next meeting, I don't see any problem with that. I mean, heck, we got a presentation upcoming that none of the Board of County Commissioners have seen because it was never put in our agenda packet. So
Okay.
I can understand.
All right, so no other comments. All in favor of the motion as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, motion carried. Okay, next on our agenda is public comment. But let me say a few words before we open the floor for public comment here tonight. The statutes require that our board provide at least one public comment period per month at a regular meeting. It is important that our citizens do have the opportunity to speak directly to the Board of County Commissioners about county issues and matters of public concern. And it is important for commissioners to hear the comments of interested citizens. In fact, we think it's so important that we have a public comment period at both our regular meetings each month. But let me say again, that purpose is for the public comments to be made during this period is to address county issues and matters of public concern. One of my responsibilities as chairman is to maintain order and decorum as stated, as the statute says, on behalf of the board. So let me ask that everyone, including our citizens and commissioners, keep your comments focused on county issues and matters of public concern. If I hear comments about people's personal lives or anything other than county government matters, I plan to rule those out of order. Thank you. So we will at this time have a public comment period open, and do we have speakers, Madam Clerk?
Yes, we have 4 individuals signed up to speak.
Yeah, we'll do the 3 minutes.
Okay,
like
thank you.
Typical.
All right, our first speaker is Mr. Don Bratcher of Estate Road, Samora.
Good evening.
My name is Don Bradford Jr. I grew up in Roxboro. Some of you may remember my dad, who was a doctor here for several decades. And in fact, his dad was a doctor in Person County in the early 1900s. So we have a long history here. I left in 1971 to go to school and to work. Came back in 2019, built a house here, and disappointed by some of the things that we came back to. Played golf as a youth at the Roxboro Country Club, a semi-private club. Anybody could play who paid the green fee. It's now closed. I mean, you can argue that a semi-private club like this is not essential to the workings of a county, but if in all the decades since the 1930s, your county could support such a club, and now it can't, it tells you that the county's headed in the wrong direction. Worked for a couple of summers in high school at Crown Aluminum. It's now an empty set of buildings. 8,500 county residents get up in the morning and commute to jobs outside the county. And then I come back to the realization that the county itself is the largest employer in the county, which is a sign of a county that's on economic life support. All this is going to be made much worse when these power plants close in a few years. If nothing changes, this county is going to be essentially a ward of the state at that point. And the responsibility for that will be on this board. I would respectfully urge the commissioners to vote in favor of the task force recommendation to establish a separate entity with the capability and the wherewithal to get the job done, and which will have less opportunities for self-dealing among the members of that entity. It's an entity that will have a mandate to bring private investment into this county, bring private employers into this county, and to hopefully attract people to this county. This county needs to grow. It needs people, preferably, hopefully young people. And, again, this county can grow without sacrificing its rural, bucolic nature. More people means more opportunities for retail, more opportunities for local medical treatment without having to go to Durham, and more opportunities, or hopefully by the impetus to Mr. Chairman, to reinvigorate and refurbish this county's public school system. Thank you.
I wasn't going to speak tonight because I thought my husband needed more than 3 minutes, but he didn't. So I will speak tonight. And I ask you tonight to listen very carefully to what is being said about where our economic development needs to go and the progress that we need to make. Like my husband, I too have seen changes here that I didn't think were possible in 30 years. In 2000, when NAFTA came through, NAFTA really hurt the small towns in North Carolina, the rural towns like Person County. And as a result of that, many of these small towns pivoted. In other words, they went to other means to find manufacturing and industry. We have to do the same here. If we don't, we will become a ward of the state, and everything that my husband said will come true. I respect my husband. I respect what he says. I respect this board, and I hope you do the right thing tonight. Thank you.
Our next speaker, Mr. Paul Lynch of Union Grove Church Road, Hurdle Mills.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. I'm here tonight to talk about the task force presentation. Now, I have not heard it yet, so I'm going to be talking at the 50,000-foot level. I will not address any specifics. You've all heard the definition of insanity: doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting different results. The EDC, as currently configured, in the last 10 years at least, has had very little success in bringing any significant economic development to this county. If they had, then criticism and comment would be neither appropriate nor forthcoming. But I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for a new approach. It's time to look at this differently. What we're doing has not worked. And if we don't turn the ship around, if we don't start making some progress, then we are facing in this county, as several others have said, nothing but ongoing economic stagnation, rising taxes, and we're going to end up nothing more than a suburb of Durham. I think we all want more for our county than that, and you have an opportunity now to adopt common sense, successful ideas that have worked in surrounding counties to bring economic development to them. It's our turn. Let's take advantage of it and make it happen. Please, I ask you to listen carefully and adopt those things that make a great deal of sense. We need to turn this around. Thank you.
And our last public comments is from Anderson Clayton of Stone Drive, Roxboro.
Hey, y'all. My name is Anderson Clayton, and I serve as the chairwoman of the Democratic Party here in Person County. And I'm really excited to be with you all tonight. And thank you all so much for being here. It's really important that people come to county commissioner meetings, and I'm so excited to see a full room in here. I originally wasn't going to talk about economic development in rural communities, but I feel like it's been the forefront of everybody tonight, especially with this presentation. And I haven't had the chance to look through it yet, but I skimmed over this document. And one thing that I don't see mentioned in here at all is talking about things that this board could already be doing to advance it, which is access to broadband in this county. I am 23 years old. I'm a young person. I'm what you all keep talking about. You want to bring back to Person County, right? We're here. And the only reason I'm able to exist in this county is because I have a job and I work from home. And that's because I've got great Spectrum internet at my house right now. Spectrum is a monopoly though, and I would love to see them maybe taken out and Piedmont Electric being able to come in a little bit more in some areas. But I think there's a real opportunity to be able to advance that. And I know this board has worked on it, but it's been an issue that we've experienced this past year. And I've heard none of you bring it back up in the past couple of meetings. Those that I have been at and the ones that I've spoken in public comment about this issue on. And I think it's a really important one. So while I think we could talk all day about what our chamber may or may not be doing or what you expect them to do with this presentation, I don't think that it is necessarily the only thing that this board could be talking about. And I do think that there are proactive steps within your grasp right now that you could be doing to work on this issue within your own reach. I was also looking at the task force participants, and when we talked about within the planning development and land use policy that we were just talking about, like public participation in this and residential participation. I know that all of the meetings were public and on YouTube, and I went back and I watched a few of them, but just looking at who was on here, I hear real estate and developer, hospital CEO, Duke Energy, VP of Finance for Roxboro Savings, co-owner of Legacy Building. I don't see your average Joes, which would mean I think your teachers, I think your hospital and your healthcare workers, I think the people that have been on the front lines of this pandemic included in this. I don't see, honestly to God, me in here. I don't see young people listed in this. Y'all keep asking us, what do you want to see? And I'm like, then ask us, ask the young people of Person County, what's going to keep y'all here? What's going to bring you back to this community? I'd love for us to be included in some of these conversations. And I've yet to see that from this board. All I hear is a lot of talking and not a lot of doing, quite frankly. So thank you for your time tonight. I really appreciate it and what you do.
Discussion, adjustment, or approval of the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented? Have a motion for approval. Any comments, questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, motion carried. Okay, new business, item number 4, Economic Development Task Force presentation, Commissioner Gentry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am pleased tonight to finally be able to present the task force recommendations. I know some of you are very anxious about the results and what they might entail, and you've been clamoring for details, and I can appreciate that. But I'm pleased that we've stepped forward with such interest. But just remember that if you have any questions about anything that I'm ever working on or proposing, you just pick up the phone and call me. It's simple. So the simple process of asking what else can we do for economic development evolved into more than just a 6-week journey. The ahas, the biggest takeaways was the engagement with the private sector became crucial to us. This process took several additional weeks after COVID. During summer vacations, key stakeholders' offices were closed for weeks on end. It took an additional 8 weeks to try to get people engaged in this process that we were investigating and discovering the ways that we could do it. And then unfortunately, 7 weeks ago, I had an injury and a major surgery. So I have not been around for 7 weeks. So that's another part of the delay. I do apologize for that, but there wasn't much I could do about it. So back, a little history here. Back in December of 2020, I made a request at a Board of Commissioner meeting so that I wanted to discuss economic development matters at the next meeting. I ran a campaign for the seat I sit in based on economic development, and I planned to do what I said I'd do when I ran. So some members of the body did not want that item on the agenda. However, on January 4th, 2021, I did present my research findings. And as a result, the past decade, 10 years of history with our EDC and the results. Unfortunately, the news was very sobering. In 10 years, we had 9 presentations on what to do, how to do it, but nothing had been implemented. And I've been watching for a year and a half different boards, and we're still talking about the same things, and we still haven't implemented plans. Not only have we had really weak and almost non-existent growth, we've not been funding our economic development efforts. Right now, our economic development is solely dependent on government funding. It has no private funding whatsoever. And contrary to a public statement that I saw recently written down that the commissioners awarded $900,000 to the Economic Development Commission, is just not true. I know $450,000 of that was CARES Act money. $900,000 would be a lot of your taxpayer money. We don't have that kind of money just to give to economic development in 1 year without raising your taxes. I don't think we did that. So as I said, all funding for any economic development in Person County currently is solely dependent on a government office. I ask you, when have you known government to grow business successfully? So I proceeded with a recommendation for an independent task force to seek out information and alternatives on how we could promote economic development in a better and more productive manner. Initially, this board was not in support. There was concern that any such measure would change the current status quo. That was never proposed. That was never proposed purpose of a task force. The mission of the task force was to investigate other available methods of promoting and funding economic development. What else can we do was the purpose of the task force. So several weeks later, I reached out to several local, successful and civic-minded business people who have experience building businesses. If you have experience as a 23-year-old building any kind of an economic engine, I'd be more than happy to have you on the board. These are people that grew up here and some people that didn't grow up here. But I'm here to tell you, you don't have to be from here to care about here. And I'm very pleased that 3 of the members that are on that task force are with us tonight. I'm going to read the members and their bios. Tommy Winstead, 30-year veteran real estate owner, developer, broker with Pointer Associates, extensive experience in commercial and residential development. Cecil Barker could not be here tonight, but he did send a statement. 25-year-old year owner of a builder, partner, co-founder of Legacy Building Corporation, extensive experience in both commercial and residential planning, construction, including historical property preservation, holds a civil engineering degree from UNC. David Zolkowski, current CEO of Person Memorial Hospital with extensive background and expertise in management, development, and operations activities in the managed care industry, as well as serving as a chief technology executive. Randy King, founding member of ESI Computing, retired Duke Energy, an energy industry consultant. Keith Epstein, Executive Vice President, CEO of Roxboro Savings Bank with extensive knowledge of commercial and residential building and real estate finance. We were looking for people with top-notch experience in business, building, and development. And these guys stepped up to the task. And I couldn't be happier. They were absolutely fabulous. They met for 6 weeks, and they reviewed 4 different successful economic development models from surrounding counties and interviewed their respective directors. They also interviewed Ms. Wilburn from our Person County Economic Development Department. All of these meetings were recorded and posted to the county website for public viewing. The task force weighed the pros and cons of the 4 and looked for the best approach that would match the size and needs of Person County. The model that was selected was to enlist and encourage our local Chamber of Commerce to develop and lead a coalition of the business community to become involved with the process of recruitment and retention. These efforts would work in cooperation with local government offices to help cement the deals. As the task force learned, successful economic development is a result of private sector participation. Model upon model showed that a successful economic development effort, the private business community, the stakeholders were vital to the process. The retiring CEO of the Cary Chamber was recently asked about his tenured success, and he stated there were 4 pillars of the Chamber's success: economic development, member services, educating the members, and engagement in government affairs. The state of North Carolina has a public-private nonprofit that's run under contract with the North Carolina Department of Commerce, and they have private funding mechanisms. They have members that fund privately for this process, for marketing and recruitment. And under their umbrella, they have relocation, expansion, marketing, tourism, financing, all under one roof. So I say to you, why can't Person County do something similar on the scale that would fit the size of our county needs? We have a decade of failure behind us. Government cannot build your businesses. There's some key findings that we found in, you can look at all of these online, but there were some sound bites that were extremely potent from the different economic developers, directors that we spoke with. One was, a county can't afford not to work well together. And I don't say that we don't work well together. I just think that we work on a lot of boards, and then we move to other boards, and we move to everybody sits on everybody's boards. There's a lot of redundancy. We had to pivot after the textile industry left North Carolina. A lot of counties did. A lot of counties were affected by that. Market research is very important. Knowledge of your surroundings with private developers is essential. The Chamber is the economic catalyst for our county. Business leaders are very important. The public-private partnership is the best model for economic development, and most counties are moving toward this model to bolster or improve development possibilities. Relationships and establishment of such are key. One-on-one marketing is essential. These are quotes from very successful economic directors of surrounding counties that we compete with. Yet they were gracious enough and wonderful enough to share information with us with the task force. Some other notable findings of crucial importance for success was to get rid of action blockers. Those folks that say, can't be done, never been done, don't want to do it. This is the way we've always done it. Change resistors. Tried that, done that, been there, not going to work. And then the process obsessiveness, the multiple duplication of advisory boards. Everyone, we're a small enough community, I think that we could streamline this whole operation and come forth a lot better. The private sector can act quickly and effectively than government. Some very successful counties have 1/3 of their business recruitment as a direct result of their own marketing efforts. They seek out the types of businesses and industry that suits the market niche they have identified for their county. The government, I'm sorry to say, gets bogged down in endless meetings, rules, restrictions, and overlapping efforts by multiple boards. It's death to business development. Two quotes that captured my attention from different economic directors were, if you don't have a product, you're not in economic development. You're just playing house. Business retention is the one single most important thing that the business community can do to bolster their economic development. So it's imperative that we incorporate some changes before change happens to us. What kind of businesses do we want? What's going to fit best? We need to find this out, not just with nice words, nice slogans. We need targets. We need dates. We need what it is that we want to see happen. What kind of buildings do we want? What businesses do we want? Do we want something different? We're going to have to act to make it happen. And this is an ongoing multi-year process. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen once. Currently, we don't have expertise on this Board of Commission or in our government departments to design and implement a program for this type of success. It is really important that we seek out guidance from successful economic development people, very much like your task force. We sat down, they listened to a lot of different people. They gained a lot of information. We need the guidance of successful people. We need to hire them. We need to consult with them. We need to learn from them so we can recreate the same type of success that they have had in their respective counties. And tonight, I'm really extremely fortunate to have such a person with us tonight. He's a 17-year veteran of economic development and most recently the former chair president of the Alamance Chamber of Commerce. Mac Williams has graciously agreed to come here to Person County on his first official day of retirement to speak to us about the processes, the growth, the milestones his chamber had experienced under his 17-year tenure. Mac, would you kindly come up and speak with us? Absolutely.
Sitting under the fan there, I can sympathize with the folks in the back, difficult to hear. BJ, thank you for the invitation to be here tonight. I'm delighted to be here and to talk about our experience in forming and operating the public-private partnership that we have enjoyed with the Alamance Chamber since 2005. That's when I joined that organization. I will say that work began in that public-private partnership before I arrived. As has been reported, Burlington, Alamance County, Mebane, Graham, all of the communities there, like here, had suffered the losses from the textile industry in the early 2000s. I think the county did apply for and received a kind of a planning grant, which they undertook about economic development. What can we do? And they did a countywide survey process, much like what was just described as your land use planning process. That same kind of thing was done about visioning forward for Alamance County for 20 years or so. In that plan, there was a specific focus on escalating and enhancing the funding and resources that were devoted to the traditional economic development process. And at that time, in 2005, and for the 20 years prior to that, economic development funding in Alamance County had been solely the function of the county commissioners who had provided, at one time, as I understand it, there was a county employee, for whatever reason that I don't have a background on and never didn't really try to find out. That didn't last very long when there was a county person working as a county employee. That's not to say those models don't work. It's just in that particular case, it did not work. And so at that time, back in the 80s, the private sector from the Alamance Chamber approached the county commissioners and said, we will do it for you in a contract basis. And so the county agreed, and from 1984 to 2004, that was the way economic development was done. The county wrote a check to the chamber, and it was a modest amount. And the chamber, with one person, did what they could do on economic development. When that person that preceded me announced his retirement, gave him a year to do it, our local business community, along with the government folks, went through a process of trying to decide, are we going to break economic development out from the chamber or keep it within the chamber or make it a public sector position again? And the decision was made to keep it within the chamber, but to bolster resources going to it. And the private sector said to the local governments, if you will increase your contributions to the effort, we will match it. And so the county increased its commitment, and the cities within the jurisdiction there also came in for the first time. And all of a sudden there was a lot more government money to resource the whole operation, and it was matched by the public sector, which we had to do a fundraising to get that. That's about the time I arrived. So we started down the road of trying to implement a focused effort, and we did that. The initial fundraising from that private sector was for a 3-year period. And so 05 went to 08 when we were going to fundraise again. And if you remember 08, that wasn't much of a economy to be doing fundraising in. Actually, we started down the road to again do the private sector fundraising. We had to ask each local government annually every year for an allocation in their budget. That was just, they can't promise but 1 year at a time. So we had to make an annual ask each year of all the local governments that were involved. And we did that, and we did that every year that I was there. And they responded. But nevertheless, getting back to the story, in the middle of the Great Recession, our funders said, not only am I going to have trouble meeting a pledge, I really don't want to go out and ask the other guy at the moment for anything either. So we wrote it out. We had enough money left over from the other campaign to ride it out a year or two. But in 2010, I approached my leadership at the time and I said, do we want to try to fundraise again for this? We created a foundation, a nonprofit economic development foundation, a separate entity. My leadership said, well, if we don't do it now, we'll just have to declare victory, fold up the tent and go home. But we don't want to do that. And so not only did they agree to step back up and replenish the foundation's coffers, if you will, they decided to double down. We had our chance of fundraising ourselves, and we decided we would engage a private sector fundraiser, a third party who knew what they were doing, to come in and do the fundraising for us. And we set a goal that I didn't think was even possible. not only a goal of money raised, but of jobs that had to come with jobs and capital investment that we were going to be tasked with bringing into the county as well. Those were the goals that we were going to be asking people to support it with their funding. And so we hired a third-party fundraiser who went out and raised 3 times the amount of money that we had raised ourselves. And that was in 2011 for a 5-year period. We did it again in 2016. And as I was walking out the door on Friday, we were well into our 3rd public sector fundraising campaign with a private sector fundraiser to keep our foundation funded. And as I mentioned earlier, in the meantime, each year we have gone to our local governments as well to ask them to continue their support. And their support was maintained at the same level the entire time I was there. Whatever they started out funding us in 2005, that's the level they were funding us in 2021 too. So the private sector funding helped take some of the burden actually off of the public sector. The public sector is still a very key partner. Don't be misunderstood. Don't let me mention or say anything otherwise. I think the partnership, as PJ's report says, the partnership is a key piece of going forward. What the private sector involvement does, besides give the agencies that are doing the work more accountability, gives them more support, gives them more resources. They're freer to do some things with private money that they might not be able to do with public money. Nothing nefarious. It's just that they've got a wider scope. They could broaden their programming. Small business and entrepreneurship, for example, in my chamber, as I was leaving it, we have been very successful at the industrial recruitment. We had kind of replenished the tax base that had left in the early 2000s. By the time I left, we'd had big distribution centers come in and some manufacturing projects come in that were employing people and generating tax base, and that was good. And we were beginning to shift our interest in the also critical, also important area of small business and entrepreneurial development. And as a matter of fact, we are now hiring for the chamber as I was leaving, had created a new position that we're going to be hiring on, that was going to be chamber staff to do work on small business and entrepreneurship development. So if you want to have a broader program, I would encourage this approach of a public-private partnership. It worked for us in Alamance to have the agency doing the work to be housed under a private sector agency, the chamber. That doesn't mean that having it within the county won't work. It doesn't mean that having a county person and a private sector person in separate agencies working together won't work. How that's structured is completely your decision to do. There's help out there for walking you through the different models, but that's what worked in Alamance County, and it remains today. I think they had a chance, the leadership did had a chance again when I was leaving to determine, do we want to mess with it or do we want to keep it as it is? The only change was they split my job. I was the chamber exec and the economic developer for the county in the same job. What they did when I left was split the job. There's a chamber president that's been hired, and that person has hired in turn an economic development person for her staff. And that economic development person is going to increase the economic development staff to help them with the load that they have. So that's a quick recap of how we did what we did. I don't know that our successes that we have had in Alamance County, and please forgive me, but just as an example of some of the kinds of things that we did where the private sector support was critical. We started down the road of trying to participate in a Duke Energy program that would help communities identify land that might be good for industrial growth, and then to do stuff to elevate it to its level of readiness, to increase its level of readiness. They call it, in fact, the site readiness program. So we thought we would go down the road of spending some private money to do that, to identify land and to do some spending, to do some things to bring it to a higher level of readiness than it might otherwise be. And I'm sure one of the quotes PJ's task force may have heard is, "Dirt does not equal a site." So much has to be done to create a workable, serviceable, risk-free, if you will, piece of real estate that an industry will want. And more and more and more in the competitive world, it is the industry's expectation is that that has already been done. They're not going to give you a year to go around and do all the things that had to be done. They want it done now, and they're not going to be the ones doing it. If you're not offering it to them, they'll go down to the next community that is. It's just that competitive. And so you have to be prepared for that. And so we decided that's what we wanted to do. And so we did some site readiness work. We participated with some incentive programs with some private money. We had private money come into the foundation that could be used to help improve the community in ways that would be attractive to community, to industrial users. We went out and were recruiting for some industry when Walmart came to visit. And Walmart was looking for a site for a food distribution center. And so we made a pitch. We did have some dirt, but we worked to make it a site. And we went even further. We had, just as your local governments have collaborated on a strategic plan, we had the city of Mebane, the city of Graham, and the county collaborate on bringing infrastructure to service Walmart. And in doing so, they opened up an 1,100-acre area of the county for gravity sewer and water service, which they provided. And since that time, since Walmart initially located on that site in that 1,100-acre area, Lidl, also a food distribution operation, came in next door to Walmart. The state brought in more money for road improvements. And then we had a venture capital backed metalworking firm come in there. And then we had a spec building developer come in and has built a spec building that is now being occupied by another e-commerce giant. And then as I was walking out the door, UPS had announced that they're going to have a big $262 million, 700 employee sorting center on this site. But we wouldn't be able to do any of that if we didn't have the dirt and the land and had done the work to put all that together back in 2011. So these are the kind of things that the partnership between the public and the private sector can accomplish. Now, I will say Alamance County has had some successes, and our organization and financing structure have had something to do with it because it allowed us to have a sustained presence over time. You can't fund something heavily for 3 or 4 years and expect something to work. It's got to be there for the long run. Economic development is a process. It's not an event. And I think it's something that has to be supported with a vision. As PJ said earlier, it's just something that's just going to have to be part of the DNA of the county, that we're going to be active and engaged in this process. And we're going to do something to be more competitive, or at least as competitive as we can be. And that's a difficult mindset to get out of. And I will tell you, my Alamance County folks are very, very conservative. And the whole idea of incentives is very controversial there. And that's another decision to make, even if you fund at a higher level, even if you go out and put infrastructure someplace, even if you do all these things, you're still going to also be asked at the end of the day for an incentive package. It's just the way it works these days. That's how it's working if you want industrial work. There's other kinds of economic development, as the strategic plan may have highlighted and hinted at, and which is perfectly legitimate to follow as well. It just so happens that my experience happens to be on the industrial side, and that's what I'm speaking about now. But there's other kinds of economic development that pay dividends as well, and maybe within the range of this group, and maybe something more of what this group needs. But the organization and the funding and the structure, which is the result of the public-private partnership, is what makes success more attainable. If you're in a little bit and then back out, in a little bit and back out, and the professional staff that you're going to need will, the reputation of that gets out there in the professional staff world, and it gets very difficult to find somebody on the professional staff that wants to come into a situation well, first of all, they have to build it themselves, and then it's only for temporary 2 or 3 year period, and then you never know what's going to happen after that. So and that's where the private sector support comes in. When you have elections, you folks know that better than anybody. You have elections, boards come and go, interests come and go and change, and that's expected. But the private sector involvement in economic development can help the agency and the staff person or people that are in there to have some continuity of what you're trying to do, so that if elections do occur and changes to the public-private partnership do occur, they can be adjusted well, and you can move forward even if you have to adjust it some. So I was very fortunate there in Alamance County that the private sector leadership was as motivated to do it as I was to be a part of it. They were motivated because of the same things your folks are probably motivated by, which was the decimation of the local economy when tobacco, furniture, and textiles were no longer cool. And we're getting exported out due to federal government policy. So we adjusted like other communities adjusted. That was our way of doing it. I'm happy that it was successful. I'm glad that they're doing another 5-year campaign as I'm leaving the office. That shows me that we were on the right track then, and hopefully the group that's going to be behind me will be on the right track later. I know I've taken some time, but that was what, BJ, I hope that's what you wanted me to do, was to explain how ours worked and the importance of it. I didn't have a slideshow to present. That's probably a good thing, but I'm happy to answer any questions or go into any other details that any of you might have.
Anyone?
And pertaining, you hired a third party to help you with the funding for private sector. How much did that cost roughly?
The third party fundraiser was on a flat monthly fee. And then, so they were contracted. They will ask for a contract for about 8 to 9 months. We asked them to cut it back to 6, which they did.
Who paid for that?
They are paid out of the funds raised. So the first campaign we did in 2006, I said, well, let me go back to provide some context, if I may. This will help you understand why the fundraising was helpful. In 2006, when we did our initial fundraising for the foundation, just getting it started off the ground, we committed to raise from the private sector in Alamance County $200,000 for a 3-year period. And we raised that fairly easily. And that was when Joe called Tom and Tom called Sarah and Sarah called Ben. And we kind of did it among ourselves. And when 2008 hit, we were halfway into our fundraising for another 3 years when we pressed pause because of the recession. That's when we made the decision to pick it back up. We didn't enjoy fundraising ourselves, especially with what we consider to be big numbers then. And so we decided, but we still needed to move forward. We still needed to make an impact. We needed to get this tax base and jobs in. So let's really get the private sector engaged here. And so the fundraiser came in, did an assessment, did an evaluation of our county, and they said, you know what, we think we can raise $1.2 million for a 5-year period. And after I picked my jaw up off the floor, I said, I kind of had Jericho, well, what's it going to involve? And this is the way this particular agency did it. They set a goal for the county. They'll give you a 6-8 month time frame to work it. And it might be, I don't want to give the fee I'm paying them because that's a negotiated thing, and I don't want to put them out there for a number, but it was a 5-digit number per month to have them do what they do, plus expenses. Somebody, they assign a paid staff person to come and camp out in your community for the period of the contract. And they've got hotels, mileage, per diems, that kind of thing, that you're paying that in addition to the monthly fee. And you're also, if the agency running the campaign wants to hire a temporary staff person to maintain the paperwork, get out, to make the phone calls, to schedule the appointments, to keep up with the paperwork, there's another expense there. But I will tell you that whatever expense we decided to pay was more than satisfied by the amount of money we got. And the other thing that helped, again, we're doing our 3rd campaign here. It helped that we had success in the first 2. From 2011, and I wish I had these numbers. I should have them ingrained in my brain because they're part of my resume. But we had, we had 12 projects come in that 5-year period with $500 million of investment or something. And then when we went to 2016, we got 1.7 million in pledges. And did the campaign, and we had another very successful 5-year period locating projects. We had Lotus Bakeries and UPS and Chick-fil-A come in with facilities, and so the investors were getting in their minds what they paid for. And we got more money for the process than we ever thought would be raised for the community.
My next question to you is, I think I heard you say that you guys, or Alamance, is now you're splitting the EDC, having an EDC director and a Chamber of Commerce director. Is that correct?
That's correct. They're keeping the economic development function within the chamber. So they're not splitting that function out of the chamber into a separate entity or going back to make it a county office. So the chamber and economic development are all within the confines of the Chamber of Commerce organization. Again, that's the way it's done in Alamance. That doesn't mean that's the way it has to be done. That's just the way we've done it.
Population of Alamance, or 2011 when you started?
When I started in 2005, the population now is in the 170 range. I'll be honest with you, I don't recall what it was. I'd have to go back and look at the data when I was there in 2005.
More than 39,000.
That's the growth in that time.
No, I'm asking, was it more than 39,000 people that live in that?
Oh yeah. We're 3 times your size beginning.
How many interstates you have?
I beg your pardon?
How many interstates you have?
That's right. We have 2.
Okay.
We have 2 interstates between 2. And I think I said this on the Zoom call when I was qualifying, that it's not just organization and funding. That's an important piece of it. I will say that a big part of our success in Alamance County are what you're getting at. We had product to sell, product in the sense that we had interstates. We're between 2 metropolitan areas with airports. So we had all of that to offer, but I will say that our economic development effort created product around those assets that then made companies feel like they could come there and operate there.
But you're saying if you didn't have that in place, it wouldn't be nearly as successful.
For that kind of economic development. We would not have, and that kind of economic development wouldn't even be looking at us if we didn't have the interstates.
Okay. I'm just trying to get why we're comparing Alamance to Person County.
Because of the structure. I'm not here to talk about outcomes because y'all don't even have a plan yet. I think what we're trying to do is get a structure and a committee put together to come up with what your plan needs to be. We had a plan just to try to take advantage of things that wanted assets and proximity to transportation infrastructure. I'm not saying you can't get that kind of stuff up here, but what I'm saying is my presentation to you tonight is to talk about the importance of the partnership and of funding the effort in an ongoing and concerted way. And it doesn't matter whether we're a major urban area or a more rural area, scale it however you want. It's the approach to it that I think I've been asked to come and talk about tonight.
Well, I do appreciate you being here, and just keep in mind, none of the Board of County Commissioners were afforded the opportunity of seeing this or knowing what we are going to hear about before this meeting began.
Sure.
So I'm just asking questions, just like most of the people in this crowd would like to know
Sure.
the answers to.
Sure.
All right.
Any other questions?
What's the membership in the chamber in Alamance?
About 600 members.
600. And what's the dues?
It's on a sliding scale. We have anywhere from $300 a year to about $1,200 a year, $1,100 a year.
Okay.
And a varying membership for each different level of dues, you get a different level of benefit.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yep.
Any others?
Well, if I may, what you're doing on this elected board is not easy work. What the task force that PJ put together did is not easy work. It may not even be work that you see the end of in any quick period while you're still in office, but it's got to start somewhere. And it starts with people who care about their place that they live in. And somebody like me who does this work, who has done this work professionally, we aren't successful without successful local people. And so I just want to say thank you to all of you serving in the elected role and those of you on your task force who weren't elected but involved nevertheless for first of all caring enough and stepping out there and getting some work done to come up with a place to start a conversation. And if I can help you going forward in the future, I'd be happy to do so. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
While I have a moment, I'd like to ask any of my task force members if they'd like to say a few words about their work on the task force. Mr. Tommy Winstead, thank you.
I appreciate the opportunity to confidence y'all put in me and the others to serve on the task force. A couple of things that I picked up on that was unilateral for everything, and especially my years on the TDA going to the state convention, is teamwork. So when you hear about these successes, it was unilateral across your county commissioners, your city council, your TDAs, everything, everybody's working for that one common goal of success. So a win for one is a win for everybody in that. One of the things that in setting up the board was a diverse board. So in that diverse board being farmers, medical industry, educators, engineers, on and on, and even young people too. I know the last board I was on, we really starved to get to social media, and having someone young on there, that serves an incredible tool, especially in today's world as it moves that way.
with potential customers coming in, having, because you never know what that particular industry or business could be, but having that diversity on the board, if it's agribusiness, having a farmer on there, then that's going to be your lead. It could be in the biomedical, having someone in the medical industry. And that was a model that I picked up on that was very successful in several of the different counties that came forward. One thing I add, I know back in history that sorry about that, with the self-dealing came up as an issue years ago, but I think we're at a point where way beyond that with problems that's a small problem, and hopefully that would not be something that would come up. I think parameters and things that could be obviously put in place that would prevent that. And that's, appreciate it.
Go ahead.
Oh.
I was going to ask you, have you seen this?
Tonight I had
But
got a
you hadn't
copy
seen
here.
it before tonight.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I'd emailed it to you.
Oh, you did? I'm sorry. Yeah. I've been real
And
busy
you-
with
and you've
a
read
lot.
through- You've read through it all and you concur with everything that's in this.
I would take it home and read it again. I wouldn't want to answer that exact. Yeah, I've only tonight that I read this particular version.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right, so
yeah. I
As a
mean, no,
member-
sorry, I just, to pin
That's
me down
fine.
to
I
say
just want-
everything on
you
there,
were-
I'd want to go through it.
I mean,
and-
you've served the community before with TDA. You've done as chairman of TDA for some
Yeah.
time, and I value your opinion.
Yes,
And I'm just wondering, I wanted to make sure every task force member knew what was in this and had
Right.
seen it. And so you answered my question. Thank you.
okay, yeah, no problem. Thank y'all.
Thanks, Tommy. All right, I did want to read a statement that Cecil did send in. He said he couldn't be here tonight because he had a roofing accident, so he's not feeling real well. He's recovering. But he said he hated that he cannot make it to the scheduled meeting tonight. I wanted to take the time to let everyone know that I enjoyed our meetings and the various presentations by the different counties. It was very interesting to see what other similar sized counties were doing for economic development. Most of the county cities gave presentations were utilizing a private public model to help reinforce the economic development for their counties. Person County and Roxboro have a lot of very positive attributes and a lot to offer to attract businesses to our area. I feel strongly with the recommendations of the task force to utilize the private public model and that this will help to streamline our development process and attract business to our area. This will take cooperation from all parties, but will only make our county more attractive. Please let me know if it can be a further service. Yours truly, Cecil Barker, Jr. So first of all, Kyle, you have some heartburn here over the fact, no, you've got some heartburn here, and I'm just here to tell you that this task force was just an information gathering process. The information was put together, we presented it, we've been passing it out to the public for weeks, this 3 pages. And I believe that somebody posted it on a website, so I'm sorry if you didn't get a copy of it before. That's our final summary, yes.
Yeah. And I just asked one of your task force members, has he seen it? And the answer
I
was
can't
no.
s-
And I'm talking, this is supposed to
I
come from the
understand.
task force. It's not supposed to come from you. It's supposed to come from the task force. That's why we appointed them. I mean, the reason I asked Tommy that, because I know he's a good friend with the Chamber of Commerce. And under the first page, it says the chamber has abdicated. Abdicated means failed to fulfill, has failed to fulfill its role in economic development in Person County. I don't think he would agree with that. I think several people would disagree with that. And is there anyone from the chamber?
Keep in mind that I was the liaison to the task force. I was the one compiling the notes and information. So if you want to question someone, you can question me.
Well, I question the task force itself,
Okay.
and I'll call them indirect. I'll call them directly. I've already talked to 2.
What are you so upset about?
I think this is attack on the Chamber of Commerce. That's the way I
No,
look
not
at
at
it. The
all.
chamber is mentioned 12 times in here. And you call out the leadership, you call it the failure to promote economic development. And I just see this as an attack on the Chamber of Commerce. I'm sorry.
Where is it attack on the chamber?
When you say that the chamber has failed to fulfill, and it needs, in page 3, the chamber needs strong leadership is needed in the chamber. It's right here.
For economic development, yes, that's
So
a
you're
true
saying the
statement.
current members of the chamber.
Does anybody on the Chamber of Commerce have economic development experience?
Are you saying they're not strong leaders?
I didn't say they weren't strong
That's-
leaders.
that's-
That's not the statement, Kyle. It says they need strong leadership in economic development. They need experienced people. Nobody here has the experience. We don't have it. If we had it, we wouldn't be 10 years behind the 8 ball. We've been reaching out to the different entities, and it's astonishing the immediate defensive position people take when they think they're being questioned about what they do. But if you don't question anything, why are we continuing to do the same things we've been doing for 10 years? Why are we promoting ourselves in economic development when we don't have a darn thing to sell or rent or anything else? Why are we wasting everybody's time? We've been doing it for 10 years. I've been sitting on the sidelines for 10 years watching this process. I've been in this seat for just barely a year. I started investigating and I was shocked by what I found. Other than the fact that this board member sits on that board, that board, that board. We got more ex officios on any board than I've ever seen anywhere in my entire life. And I'm like, why are we doing this? What's the goal? What are we trying to accomplish? I believe we've got talented business folks here. We could lead a transition into public participation. We need the players at the table to help design and build the community that we want. Mac's outline was a plan of a formula that would work. You identify your niche. We had interviewed smaller counties who did very well. They all had private funding mechanisms. The only county of the 5 that we looked at was our own county. They identified niches. They said, this is what we want to accomplish. Alamance County went after industrial space. If you want to be a retirement community, then state that you want to be a retirement community. If you want to be a small business community, then state such. But don't go around, in my opinion, promoting economic development and manufacturing and industry and not giving a hoot about the mega site, which is a 1,350 acre site that, oh, by the way, Duke Energy thought it was a good idea that maybe we should have a mega site. They were instrumental in helping that come to be. But it sits there, it's not ready. There's not even a sign out there that says what it is, where it is, what it could possibly be. We sit and we wait for the state of North Carolina to feed us leads. I think we had something like 84 leads in the last 12 months. 84 total leads or 88 total leads, 4 of them landed. That's 0.04%. Anybody that's in sales expects at least a 10% return. It's frustrating. So there needs to be a solid push from the private sector to seek some fresh ideas and to avoid complacency. If the private sector doesn't want to do it, that's fine. This is just a suggestion. If you don't want to take up the mantle, if you don't want to do it, then don't. You'll continue to get the same results you've been getting. Iron rusts from disuse. Water loses its purity from stagnation. Inaction zaps progress. And a dead end road's a damn good place to turn around. I do envision that Person County can rebuild itself. I mean, do you want to be a Bedford Falls or do you want to be a Pottersville? You got to ask yourself that question. What do you really want here? Mr. David, come on up.
I promised myself I wouldn't talk, but I figure I'll say a couple comments. Just to set the record straight, because I sit on the chamber board, so I have like 4 or 5 people here looking at me like, what are you doing? I think just a couple, observations, and I think the report mentions it, which is when you talk to the other community and the other communities, the chamber does play a role. So I don't think this was a matter of the chamber doing anything wrong, or really truly, it wasn't at all any kind of attack on the chamber. And again, look for heads nodding from our task force members. There was zero, attack on the chamber. And I just want to clarify that because I have to go sit in a meeting with these people in a couple weeks. I think what was clear is that in economic development, there is a utilization of the chamber because they have business connections with, or they have connections with the business community. And so it seemed kind of like a logical step to maybe utilize that structure as a way to help with economic development, because that was one of the other themes that we heard, was that part of the economic development is engaging your existing business community. And so it wasn't so much at all, and let me be clear, because I want to make sure when I see you next month, that we were not attacking the chamber. I think the question is more, is there a way to extract more value from the chamber and really to enhance the good work that you already are doing? Great golf tournament, by the way. And so I think that was the spirit of what we were trying to accomplish, or that was the spirit of the recommendation, was just saying, given that you already have connections with 300 plus businesses in the community, can we leverage those connections to help with economic development? Does that kind of bridge the gap? Because there was zero. I just want to be clear about that.
Private enterprise, including
Yeah.
the chamber, which is.
I just
private
didn't want
enterprise.
anyone thinking we're attacking the chamber,
No.
especially the chamber. What's that?
Maybe you should have written this and softened it up a little bit.
I just wanted to speak for the task force because you all were there and
I'm a-
this was all about the,
Well,
yeah.
My question was, like with Tommy,
Sure.
this final report summary, did you read through it?
Yeah, no, I mean, it was sent out, I think the 25th is when we received it via email and we did. And in fairness, if we, and I'll own it from a task force perspective, that if there was, if we had comments, we should have replied to the email, and said that. I thought it looked generally, on point, consistent with what we talked about. And I thought Mac did a real good job too, so. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, David.
Yeah, I just want to comment on this, a couple of things. One is that when we talk about working together, I think our EDC and I think our TDA and I think our Chamber of Commerce, along with others, we do work together. There is a communication going on. I think that they each have their role that they have has been established. And so they each have their niche of what they do, but then they all collaborate and they do talk to each other and communicate. So I don't want people thinking that there's any separation or they don't communicate to each other. They do. Again, what Mr. Kyle said, Commissioner Puryear, he had a legitimate question in that about, because we just saw this just came, I just got this when I sat down at the desk. And so I'm sitting here reading it, and certainly there are some things that, as you question, which were adequate. Also, the question about the population between Alamance and us is a big difference. But I think we all want to see economic development in Person County and in Roxboro. We all want to do that. We all know we have a mega park. And when that mega park was first brought up and established, even the people from Duke said, this is not going to happen overnight. We may have this mega park for 10, 15 years before someone comes in and decides they want to develop it, or someone comes in and wants to put a major plant down. And so that's what we're dealing with. Now, do we sit here and we say, okay, it's been X amount of time? Do we say throw in the towel and say, no, we're not gonna, we don't need the mega park, or we're not gonna do anything with the mega park. I disagree with that. And then how much do we want to invest that we have now? And the land is not owned by Person County government. So a private citizen owns that land. So as we go forward, you know, I think we have to sit back and think, okay, what do we want to do with the mega park? Or how are we selling it? I know what we've been promoting it, and we can't expect that we're going to get a home run, you know, a year from now, 2 years from now. And I'm not going to say we get a home run if we go hire someone for third party to get private sector funding. Certainly would be nice and will help. But I think there's a lot of questions that we still need to ask ourselves. And certainly we need to think about what is the cost? And if it doesn't produce, then what are we going to do? How do we handle that? And again, we say we got a contract. So, you know, we give this person, say, okay, we're paying you 5 figures, and what do we expect? How quickly do we expect to get that? So there's a lot of questions. There's been heartburn since we started this task force, but we did support it. We did say, let's do it. Personally, I know PJ went through the whys that she it took her a while to get this report to us. But I do feel like that the amount of time it took for this report to get to us was unacceptable. And I wish we'd have got it sooner. And I wish we'd have had this earlier to look at versus now. So in my opinion, if there's any motion or anything to continue on with this, I certainly would not support it. We just got this. It took us 6 months to get it. And I think we need to sit back, look at it, read it, and come back later at a meeting and talk about it more. That's all I got.
Mr. Gentry?
Yes. Do you have any
Uh,
comments?
I mean,
Do you have any thoughts or comments, Mr. Chairman?
no, the time factor is important. There was a long, between the end of the meetings that you guys had and ended in May, and here we are just in November getting.
Did you not hear my
I'm so-
opening remark?
I heard that. Yes, I did. And I can sympathize with your surgery. That's no, you know, I can totally understand that. But the other factors, I'm not sure about. I don't think if there were other things that someone else had brought up, probably wouldn't have taken as long. So that, you know, it's water under the bridge, and that part's done. And here we are tonight, and we
Well, I
need to
thank
make a
I'd like to
decision and
thank
go
you for
on.
your assistance.
But I'm sorry.
I'd like to thank all of you for your assistance. Not one of you has ever called, except for Mr. Palmer, ever called to say, how's it going? Do you need help? What can we do? You've never reached out. So it took me 8 weeks to get an audience with the Chamber of Commerce in our county because they were closed down. I'm so sorry it took.
Any help?
Nope, I didn't.
You didn't, did you?
No, I did not.
But yet you want to flip it over on us.
No, I'm just saying you're.
I'm sorry, I disagree with that.
Okay.
She didn't have to ask me.
No.
No, ma'am, you may not. Thank you. No, I'm sorry. Whoa, this
Quiet,
is
quiet,
not,
Please. Quiet, please.
not a public comment time.
We aren't going to do that right at this minute. So they were asked to come. Ms. Clayton? Sorry.
Mr.
Ma'am,
Chairman, this is out of order.
please, if you don't, we're going to ask that we excuse you from the room, please. Okay. Mr. Chairman. Mr. Purdy has the floor.
I make a motion to suspend this to allow leadership from the Chamber of Commerce, leadership from Tourism Development, leadership from EDC to including what other entities are mentioned in this report, and have them invite them to speak on an agenda item, whether they, once they've read it, because they probably haven't read it yet, and just give and allow them to give their input at the next meeting.
next upcoming meeting.
I mean, we
That's-
just kicked the land use plan down for the next meeting because it wasn't after, it didn't come after Thursday. We just got this tonight, so I think that's only fair.
Okay, so we're gonna,
We're not asking you, any of you on this board, to vote on this summary. This is just information of what was gathered and collected. Half of it is quotations from other people of what we learned.
okay,
It was just information. There's nothing here for you to vote on in this. It's a report, it's a summary. What I would like to do is hereby make a motion from the task force findings from the summary. I'd like to move that we approve the development of a separate service contract with the purposes of establishing a public-private funding structure to collaborate with the chamber and any other private associations to do business and promote economic development in Person County. That could include your chamber, your tourism, whomever you like to be, but I believe that we need to enter into some kind of a service agreement to encourage the public sector, the private sector into this game.
You haven't heard from the chamber if they want to collaborate. You haven't heard.
I
that's
have
the reason.
actually talked with Mr. Woody Jacobs, and he called me 2 weeks ago and said, yeah, I've presented this because I presented it to his executive committee. He presented it to his board. He called me and said, yeah, the chambers, we really like this idea. We really think this is a good idea, and we're on board with it. He's not here tonight. I thought he would be here.
Commissioner Gentry, I just spoke with him 3 nights ago and he was adamantly opposed to it. He told me himself.
Well, then he's telling stories to one of us.
I spoke to him probably 5 days ago, and he was definitely against it.
That is not what he told me.
We had a motion on the
we
floor
do-
from
we
Kyle
do have a
Pierre.
motion, and that was
And
part
that's,
of the
and then
discussion.
we, unless she's making a substitute motion, we have the motion from Kyle, and we need to vote on that. And if we want to hear another motion, we hear another motion, but his motion is on the floor.
And I was trying to get some clarity from the county manager as to what may all actually be on the next agenda. What items do you have coming up that we aren't aware of? Will we have sufficient time to?
We can make time for
Okay,
this.
all right, okay. All right, so
If I understand the motion correctly, Kyle, you want to give them the opportunity to come up and speak at the next meeting about this
Correct.
task force. Okay,
A
yeah,
continuation.
continuation, yes.
Okay, to what purpose?
To hear,
I want clarity on, we're going to continue. We're opening up a public hearing? What is the process here?
it's not a
Just-
public hearing.
This is-
It's a continuation of this agenda item, allowing the chamber, TDA, EDC,
Okay,
Uptown Development to give their opinion, once they've read this, to give us opinion. You said Woody told you something, he told me something different. Let's find out what the chamber thinks about it.
that's fine.
Okay,
Okay.
so we're clear on the motion.
that's I already motioned.
Madam Clerk, would you restate that one?
Vice Chairman Perrier has made a motion to allow the leadership from the Chamber, the TDA, Economic Development Commission, Uptown Development, and other entities mentioned in the report to have the ability to read and to bring their input to the Board of Commissioners meeting on November 15th as a continuation of this item.
Thank you. Questions of the motion? Further questions? All in favor of the motion as stated, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carried 4-1. Thank you. Item number 5 on the agenda is regarding a decision granting a special use permit application at a previous meeting. Mr. Attorney, would you care to address that?
Mr. Chairman, briefly, yes. I think this will be easier, quicker. The board, you will recall, conducted a public hearing on a special use permit application on October 4th. I had to be out of the state. My law partner was with you all, T.C. Morris. And at the conclusion of the public hearing, the board voted unanimously to grant the requested special use permit. This is the cell tower, communications tower case. The newly enacted land use statutes now require that the Board of Commissioners adopt the written order in an open meeting, just like you all did with the previous special use permit order, if you remember. So this is just simply the order that your planning staff drafted, and then my law partner and I reviewed, made a few changes. So while you have two lawyers and your planning director in agreement, we recommend that the board approve this proposed written order.
Thank you. Questions from board members? If not, do we have a motion to approve as just stated and clarified?
I made the motion.
Have a motion to approve. Any further questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None motion carried. Thank you. For chairman's report, just a couple of 2 or 3 points here. Our veterans are having several events going on in the next several days. I would encourage all of you in the public to take a look at the social media if you do that sort of thing, or newspaper, and support those activities as they come about. I think they've even got a veterans ball at the armory. So all of those things are extremely important to us in our country and supported by our vets, and we want to support them. And 2, this is the beginning of American Indian Heritage Month, and we'd like to acknowledge that and say that we want to honor the American Indians this month. And 3rd and last, today we had Congressman Ted Budd to come to Raleigh Regional Airport. That's our airport here in the county, and talk with us about the projects that we had ongoing, runway extension and hangar project. And he was very supportive and encouraging for all those projects, and supportive of the long-term investment that Person County is making at our airport. That concludes my comments. Manager York.
Just like to add to the comments about the airport visit, just as an update for our corporate hangar that we are constructing. The foundation, we're hoping to have the concrete poured towards the end of this week. There's lots of rebar in place, and its ground has been broken. So if you haven't had a chance to get out there, we are posting pictures of the progress of the corporate hangar for you. So that project is moving forward as scheduled.
And Commissioner Perrier,
No report.
Commissioner Palmer.
Yes, sir. I don't like to stir the pot, but I'm going to stir it. When I was hired, elected, I inherited 480 some odd pages of backlog. How much are we going to compile in the next 4 years? That's my report.
Mr. Gentry,
I've given my report. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Sims.
Thank you. I just want to thank everyone came out, whether you're for or against the meeting and the proposals that were brought up today. Thank you for coming out. It was a good crowd. And it just shows that we care about our county. So thank you for coming out, and we look forward to our next meeting, and everybody have a good night.
We have a motion to adjourn. A motion to adjourn.